All right. Good morning, everyone. And happy Monday. Hope everyone is doing well. And as usual, if you wouldn't mind just chiming in, let me know you can hear me and, just making sure everything is working. Give everybody a few minutes here to log on. All right. Good morning to all of you. Yeah, Barry, we had that sun yesterday. It was a pretty nice little day here, but the rain has moved in. It has moved in. All right. I think that's enough minutes. Talk a little market stuff. Um, Obviously, as you can see, market not doing anything different last week than it did the week before, simply moving higher each day. Although we are seeing that trend that we've been seeing quite often throughout the year. Here's your Nasdaq really kind of leading the charge, almost as if to drag the S&P with it, but both kind of going on to hit new highs multiple times last week. But then the flip side of that, we have an NYSE that's been drifting lower, a Dow that's been stalling slash lower, a Russell that's been drifting lower. All right, so we've seen this quite often this year. Three of them go one direction, two go the other. If those two go the opposite direction, then the other three go the other direction. So very, very common. However, overall, trend is simply up across the board. And what was clear last week as of right now, well, we got a NASDAQ leading a charge. Normally, we might say, are we concerned about the health of the market? But since we have seen this happen so many times this year, um, with those three indices just kind of going a separate direction, it's hard to get too worked up over it. And clearly, the trend is up. Now, do keep in mind when it comes to seasonality for what that's worth. Um, kind of like the last chance for some weakness here before the end of the year is right around now, kind of like the mid month of December. And then assuming all goes, you know, as planned, that end of the month, beginning of the year, Santa Claus Christmas rally there. So don't be surprised. Now, when you look at the Nasdaq here, I mean, nothing about that looks like something that's dropping today or anything. But again, all pullbacks and/or corrections have to start somewhere. But pretty convincing way to end the week for the Nasdaq. S&P look pretty good as well. Um, I think we're always going to have a little bit of caution here. Pretty good run since the bull market low. We've done relatively well. I think we've only had. I don't even know if we've actually had an actual correction. I know the clowns on the financial networks like to call everything a correction, right? Because they're a joke. But um, a pullback. I mean, if everything's a correction, then I guess pullback is not a word. Doesn't exist. I mean, because I thought you could have a pullback or a correction. A correction is a large pullback, of course, but a pullback isn't a correction. So I don't. I want to say this maybe barely went into correction, like 11 or 12% or something. But we definitely haven't had a doozy, right? A nice big 15 to 20% or something. So we haven't had one since we kind of came off our lows. So certainly, um, I suppose one can make the case that we are due. And narrow it in here. But I think this, right? We fell from 4,600. I mean, this barely. I mean, not enough to where I'd even say it was a correction, right? Because 10%, I'm talking about a technical, of course. Again, the clowns on TV act like they don't know what that is. It's almost like they get their feelings hurt if they can't call something a correction. But the adults in your room know what we're talking about, right? We're talking about like 10% or more type idea. Not in the grand scheme of things, it matters all that much, which is why I don't understand why sometimes it's really hard for them to say that. But 10 moving across the 10% would have obviously put you at 4140 ish, 4100, and you can kind of see that's exactly where the low was. So even this was only around 10%. I think this was 10%. So it's almost like the market has been kind of insistent on staying out of that 10% range, or out of that correction area. But it can't do it forever, never has, never will. So when that comes, there are things that we've talked about that I think are worth just keep in mind that historically, you know, um, corrections and bear market corrections have commonly followed the start of easing cycles. So worth noting there, maybe that still happens, maybe not. Maybe quote this time it's different. The other thing I think is worth noting is when you look at last week, we looked at this before, and we had talked about this advanced decline line, this non-confirmation here, right? And apparently, right, kind of wiped it out once we moved up to the new highs. But you notice last week, notice how our advanced decline line was dropping every day last week. As a matter of fact, if you look closer, you'll see this. S&P notched 4 new all-time highs, and if you look, right, you can kind of see how all we do is just kind of keep falling, right, towards the end of the week. So not the greatest look in the world, right? But lately, the market hasn't cared. So do we care? It is what it is. One thing that you always want to keep in mind when you talk about any non-confirmations, any kind of divergences, we got to make sure we get it right. Again, it's another one of those things. Some of you know, the clowns, um, the bobbleheads, as I like to call them, don't understand about technical analysis. If you understand technical analysis and charting and chart work and things of that nature, then you understand that no one's ever saying anything's perfect any more than somebody's fundamentals are perfect or their PE ratio. Nothing's perfect in markets, right? If something was, then trading would be pretty darn easy, right? So no one's expecting every time there's a breakout that we run to the moon. If you truly understand technical analysis, then you have false breakouts, fake outs, right? So same thing here. When you talk about momentum divergences or any divergence for that matter, any non-confirmation for that matter, just because they form doesn't mean what they imply is going to happen, right? So in other words, just because we had right? Back here, we had this kind of non-confirmation with the advanced decline line. That doesn't mean we're definitely falling, right? No more than when we see momentum divergences. It doesn't mean that we're definitely falling or rallying. However, commonly when we do go on big declines or big rallies, those types of non-confirmations and divergences are there, right? So you just want to make sure you understand that the correct way, right? So what'll happen is something like this fails, and then someone thinks, "Oh, that doesn't work. It doesn't mean anything." And then the next time they get caught with their pants down, right? No one said it's supposed to happen every time. As a matter of fact, we kind of make it very clear that when you're in a nice sustained bull move, your bearish signals or signs are going to fail more often, right? They're going to fall prey to the current. No different than a bear market current. The bullish things are more likely to fail. So not only is it not expected that this is going to work, we expect it to fail more often than we prefer. Doesn't mean we go run around ignoring it or anything, right? Now, what we'd like to see when things like this occur, it's kind of like when this one here, we really kind of wanted to see this, right? This old line break, right? So that we knew it wasn't just a pullback. I thought it was going to break, didn't, right? Based on what we see here. And again, just kind of like that feeling of, hey, we're kind of due, for a nasty one. It didn't happen, right? So you kind of look for that price confirmation. So I do think there are reasons, still reason to be a little concerned, I suppose. But you know, at the end of the day, we kind of got a market that certainly doesn't seem to care about anything other than going up. As I like to jokingly say, right? As long as there's an Earth tomorrow, apparently we're going higher. Like there's no reason to ever drop. And hey, that by itself a lot of times is kind of bearish, right? When just it's just so captain obvious. When everybody is bullish, that's probably one of the bigger concerns. Problem is you can't really put a day, dime, or penny on that. That type of condition can, last for quite some time. So for now, path is up. Nasdaq seems to be leading the way, so keep that in mind. Saw a lot of great breakouts last week. Let's see. So these are ones that I'd kind of prefer to see pullbacks on. Tesla. We looked at this, tried to go long at the end of last week, thinking it was going to go to 400. Sure looks like it's going to do today. Problem is the premium just didn't really justify the move. At least, in our realm. Somebody's looking for a 10, so 20, 30% gain, sure. But for us, unfortunately, if this trade had been on a Thursday, we would have taken it in a heartbeat. It would have been huge. But point is, one, the stock is sending a message of moving higher. Our target was 400 on the break. So if you look at that little pennant there or that little triangle, it projects to around 400, maybe a little higher. The second thing is if it pulls back, if you can get a pullback to that 360, might be a great time for a re-entry. Same thing with Meta over here. We were kind of hopeful for a pull to 600 last week, and after the breakout, you can see that nice little breakout on Tuesday. So if we can get ourselves a pullback, and remember, pullbacks are good things. Like we can get stuff like this back at 600 and get a good play. Tesla back there at that 360, or Apple looks like it might be rolling over now. So give somebody another opportunity back here at 237 ish, right? I wouldn't be surprised if it held up at 240, just the kind of psych number. But this would be where you're kind of looking your chops for a re-entry there. So we had some really good breakouts there. Microsoft, not quite as wonderful of a breakout, but that 440 level, certainly seems to matter. We took that out last week. So pull back to 440, we would think it would hold. And if it doesn't mean it's not still trending higher. There's no rule saying it has to, but that's where we might expect it to. One that we are going to keep an eye on for, we'll call it breakout watch. Keep an eye on this. Pretty nice 185-ish up top. It almost looks more like 186, but I don't know. It's tough to say. It's more of like an area, so I might go with the 185. Bottom line, you can get a close. You'll notice none of these closed with any confusion, right? They all kind of made it very clear they'd pushed through. So I just wouldn't want to be like right here again like that. But the downside of waiting for that break is each one of these ones that we thought was going to break out that eventually did. The problem is, it did it in like a convincing fashion, and then we're kind of miss out on the trade. Makes it a little difficult. So, but with the market pointing higher, stock pointing higher, this being the ideal target, certainly somebody could look at this thing at, I don't know, it's kind of pricey though. But keep in mind, you're banking on a breakout, right? So that's what we'd be doing. Because there isn't a lot of money to be made to run from here to here. Again, it's not even like a 40% gain, which to me isn't really worth doing for the risk, you know? Uh, so we think that you probably end up with some sort of breakout like these others where it keeps going. But the good news is you're already in it. So, all right. So we're still watching Broadcom. Looked like Burlington was taking a nice shot at that 300, but I guess not. But we are still keeping an eye on it. Patiently waiting. We had snow last week take out that 180 mark. As you can see on Friday, came down and um, came dangerously close to testing it, so it could pull back a little further. So if we do get a pullback, I'd expect to hold that 180 and try to run up there to that gap window if you can. So this was one that took out a mark for us. Let's see, who else? Who else? I think that might have been it, the ones we were looking at. I mean, we're still watching SMCI. Right, it keeps stalling up here against what appears to be this 45. You got a real narrow window here. It takes out 45, still trying to get to 50, but you'll see obviously 3 out of those last 5 days just getting right up there and just can't seem to get through. So, point is, a lot of good stocks, a lot of good levels to watch. I don't remember anything down here. Yeah, nothing down there. I mean, I know Lulu had earnings towards the end of last week. Nice good pop there. I just don't know if I do anything here. I don't know. I have to go back and look and see if these levels still matter. Maybe they do. These are obviously from the day, back in the day. You can kind of see whatever it was, it held here. So 385, and then this is the top, obviously the gap down. You got this 385, 320. When it comes to the earnings stuff, I'm not a huge fan of trying to do too much. Trying to pick a direction, it's hard. I think it's hard to say. Strangling it doesn't make a whole lot of sense this early in the week. And gold, man, it just would not break that 2650. Guess I never would have thought that was that major of a mark there. Okay, what else we got here? MDB has earnings today. Oh, I can't imagine what those premiums must be. Wow. See, last earnings it jumped, closed 245 at the open. It was up 30. The open, so it wasn't up huge. Oh, I'm sorry. I mean, it opened up higher than that. 290. So $45. So, no, it's not too bad. About 20% jump. Close to it. It was 20% at the high. This one here, even worse. This one didn't do as much, though. This one didn't do anything, really. So even if you tried to bank on a 20 percenter, remember, you had one direction or the other. I don't know if it's realistic. I'd probably go ahead and just err on the side of up. It seems to be where most of it's happening. But look at that. Even the 400s are $8. Yeah. But yeah, if I was going to pick a side, I'd probably pick up and I'd go probably 400. But yeah, pretty pricey. Hard to do much with that. But all right, so let's see. All right, so we got several stocks to watch on a poll. Amazon, by the way, last week. Go get them, guy. It's hard to want to do anything with that now. But man, really frustrating considering 2 weeks ago we had those 210s. Rolled them down to the 207.50s. Waited until Monday to finally jump and get going. Disappointing. But anyway, spilt milk, bridges, water under, all that stuff. So these are the ones I'd be paying attention to. Um, Looking at AI the other day. So we've got the ones that have already broken out. We've got Tesla. Sure, it'd be nice to get a pullback on these. Apple, Microsoft looks like the closest one to getting a pullback. And then watching for a breakout there. I had a student from my coaching program tell me they went into a Burlington for the first time. I had made a comment that I went to the mall for the first time um, to get something. I think it was on Saturday, and I had not been to the mall near me. I mean, it's got to be years, and I just couldn't believe how much of the mall was vacant. Um, the second floor, I would say, had to be no less than 75% vacant. Couldn't believe it. And towards the anchor stores, it was completely vacant. Where most of the stores on the second floor were above the food court where the elevator is. So in other words, obviously first one's out of the elevator. And I figured, well, downstairs is probably full. Nope. I'd say at least a third of those stores are vacant. And then of all the stores that were there, I remember back in the day, I mean, it was all name brand stores. Most of these stores were just seemed like fly by nights or mom and pops. Very, very few that, that I remember from, again, seems like I always knew the stores that were in the mall. So I was joking with some friends of mine. It's like, what we ought to do is we ought to go buy a mall and turn it into one big paintball zone. And you could rent the store spaces. As that's the clubhouse for a team. So if you wanted to have a team, this is your space. That's where you could keep your equipment. You know, have your get-togethers, do whatever you do. Just kidding around. Since we play disc golf, one guy responded, "Oh, we could play disc golf through the mall." And my response is, "Well, why not both? Why don't we have, you know, what is it? What's the two factions that are warring each other? Chesterfields? No. Gosh, what was that called? Something McCoys. Wait a minute, McCoys and Hatfields. Is that right? Hatfield and McCoy. That's it. I think that's right. And I said, you could have the paintballers shooting at the disc golfers, or they have to shoot the discs like ski. And the disc golfers you get to throw it at the, you know, paintballers because they've got the body armor on and stuff. But anyway, I digress. He had mentioned that, I'd never been into a Burlington before. He's like, I actually just went into a Burlington store this week. And another thing was the mall, there just wasn't a lot of people there on a Saturday, like less than 3 weeks out for Christmas. I remember like just going to the mall. I hated it because it was just swamped. It was like, this was not even busy, not even close. I mean, if anything, it looked like it was a weekday. And he said that he had been to a Burlington store and it was packed during the weeks. Like it was full of people. So I'm like, well, there you go. I haven't been into it. I think Barry, you and I talked about this a long time ago. I hadn't been to a Burlington. The last time I was out of Burlington, it was still called a Burlington Coat Factory. So just times are changing. Anyway, so we can get through this 300. I think that's about it. All we were watching. Let's look around a little bit. Let's go around the horn. I feel like there's somebody we're missing. Hmm. Donald's looks bearish. It's a pretty bearish candle. Obviously, there's the UNH. We crushed that one at the end of the week. I would expect volatility to continue for a while. Keep in mind, this was a volatile stock most of the time anyway. So, all right, market's getting ready to open. I know everybody wants to get out there and make some trades. So we'll hop off. Otherwise, uh, ooh, wow, Barry. I might have to go take a look at prices like that. I could use a new coat. I could use a different color coat. My wife gives me a hard time because all I wear is like things with hoodies on them and hoods. So all my jackets have like hoodie coats. But all right, everybody get to trade. Just real quick question about holiday time. I will be doing a market cast call the week of Christmas, but that's it. The rest of everything, Wealth Pop brand, all that is closed for basically for that week and for the beginning of the following. So there won't be a market cast call, whatever that next Monday is. What does that be? I mean, that's the 30th, maybe. Let me think. 25, something like that. But there will be one the week leading up to Christmas. So, all right. Hey, good luck in the trading of this week. Let's make some money. Talk to you next week.